All right, welcome. Today my guest is Alex Lioubimenko. He's a freelance pianist living in Montreal. He's a recent graduate of the Schulich School of Music from McGill University, and he teaches privately at his studio in DDO. So welcome, Alex.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So my first question is, how did you get into playing piano? Like, what got you into piano as a young person?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, I was about 6 years old, and I saw this article in the newspaper, and so it was a teacher that was teaching at his house, apartment actually, and I told my parents I want to take piano lessons. They were like, really? Okay, sure, So they brought me to this teacher, and I ended up studying with him for 13 years. Started in classical, and then made the switch to jazz eventually.
Okay, wow,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. So you were 6 years old, and you saw an ad for a piano teacher, and somehow you were called to take lessons.
For some reason, I was just like, this is what I have to do.
Yeah, okay. And do you remember how that happened? Like, what was it about the ad or the piano?
No, I don't really remember. The teacher was from Georgia, in Europe, so I was kind of inclined to study with him because I knew the Russian kind of school, Soviet school of music was really good, at the time, and well, still is. And I was really interested by classical music to begin with, so that was kind of the pathway that I chose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And what got you into classical music? And that seems so young to me to have an interest in classical music.
I just thought of it as something that is very how to say, grandiose, a really kind of a big achievement if you're able to play classical music, or you understand classical music, or anything that's related to classical music. I always thought of orchestras as this huge huge collective of musicians that were all crazy good,
Mm-hmm.
So that's what really got me interested in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was it in your family? Were your parents playing music?
No,
at home,
I'm the first musician.
Okay.
I mean, at home I was mainly hearing rock music, that kind of thing. My dad was really into, and still is really into, 70s rock.
Okay.
So Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath as well. Nazareth, some prog rock. Anyway, basically rock from the 70s.
Okay.
So no, there was no music going on really in terms of the actual playing an instrument. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. And obviously your parents supported this. You took lessons for that long. So was there a point where they were like, okay, he's really into this?
It was to tell you honestly, it was on and off. So I had my ups and downs, like I think any musician does. But yeah, they were very supportive. To give you an example, they drove me to this guy's house all the time, which was quite far. He lived in Côte des Neiges area, and coming from the west, it was quite the trip. So yeah, they were really supportive. They got me an acoustic piano after 6 months.
Wow.
So yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome.
Okay. And what would you obviously connected with this teacher? Was there anything about his approach that worked well for you?
I mean, initially the connection was just I was amazed at his skills. He was an amazing player, composer. He has perfect pitch. He's I don't know. He's really up there, skill wise. So that really wowed me in the beginning, of course, as I was starting my lessons. But also, he pushed me a lot. His approach was kind of very technical, I want to say.
Okay.
So I was playing a lot of scales, doing a lot of arpeggios, chords, and that kind of thing. I was learning technically challenging pieces for me at the time. I was stretching my fingers trying to play octaves at that age, and the kind of stuff that isn't easy for a 6-year-old or 7-year-old.
Yeah.
But it really pushed me, and I think the main thing that pushed me with his approach was he would always set these they seemed like impossible goals at the time.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. We did a competition where I was competing against high school students, and I was 8 years old, or 9 years old. So that was cool. I recorded a CD when I was 10, I think, or something like that, with really challenging classical pieces. So he pushed me to do that too. He was like, we have to produce something. We have to like record your progress and how your evolution as a musician.
Mm-hmm.
So it was tough. It was tough because I was practicing a lot, but it pushed me.
Yeah. Wow, it's very exceptional. Like, you sort of imagine like kids not wanting to practice.
That happened for sure. That was
but
there
you must have like really enjoyed it though.
Yes,
like,
I did.
There must have been
did.
something in the piano that like really worked for you to be into it and to be like willing to be pushed at that age to.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
Cool. And I know now you're into jazz and stuff like that. So can you tell me about that transition from learning classical as a kid to switching to jazz?
Well, I mean, the amazing thing about this teacher is that he did both.
Oh, okay.
He himself started as a violinist, like at a very young age. Both of his parents were musicians. And then he switched to piano and basically practiced classical music for a long, long time. But he started getting interested in jazz because it was kind of the hip thing of the day, And he like, I don't know, he really dove like into that and became a master of jazz somehow.
Okay.
And classical. I don't know,
nice.
And at a certain point, he gave me an Oscar Peterson CD, which was Night Train.
Nice. Awesome.
And that was it. I listened to that and like shed a few tears of joy. Yeah, and I told him, I want to learn how to play like that. And like, what is this? What is jazz? Like, what's going on? I don't understand anything.
That album just swings so much.
Oh my god, it's insane.
It's amazing.
It's insane. Aside from like the out of phase ride cymbal, but everything else is cool. But so he told me I can teach you that. I'll show you the basics and we'll go from there. You'll transcribe. And I remember he would record like small improvisations that he would do over a blues.
Okay.
On like a cassette, and I would bring that home and listen back to it and like try to transcribe and see what's going. Yeah. But that's how I got into jazz, and I was doing both. I was doing classical and jazz for a while.
Okay. Yeah. Amazing. And did you find it challenging to sort of switch from, like, because I know a lot of classical musicians, the idea of improvising, of like getting off the page is such a challenge. But I guess since you were so young, was it a natural process?
Well, how old was I? I don't know, like 14 maybe, when I started with jazz and like kind of just, getting the basics down, I guess. It was definitely challenging because, I didn't know what to play. So, if someone tells you improvise, how? Like, I don't know.
Where's the score?
What do I do? So he would show me like some scales and I would use those, but it always sounded kind of like synthetic, I want to say, like fake in a sense. But the more I transcribed, and it really helped me, with him helping me how to transcribe as well, because, not a lot of people have like a step-by-step approach. And actually that's one thing that I like to teach my students is like this method of learning, as opposed to necessarily, like showing them like, well, this is how you do that. I'll tell them, well, in order to get there, step 1, 2, 3, 4, and then, it's kind of like that, what's that anecdote where like the fisherman and you kind of catch a fish or something and he eats it, or you show him how to fish and then he can eat forever.
Yeah, totally.
So same thing here. And that's what he did with me. So I guess I kind of took that from him and transferred it to my students.
Okay. And in a nutshell, like, what is that process?
Well, definitely I'm going to, and I do this a lot, especially with young kids, is I tell them how to practice. So what I want them to do in their kind of daily practice, I oftentimes encourage them to practice away from the instrument. So I'll tell them like, before you sit at the piano, for example, think about what you want to do today and like how you're going to do it. And, maybe just look at the notes first, that like you're about to, I have to learn this first line, for example. Okay, what's involved in that? Try to figure everything that you can without touching the instrument. And then go to the piano and start practicing, Of course, warm-ups, super important. I mean, yeah, it's like a step by step approach. It differs from, student to student, of course, but that's something that I oftentimes repeat, like to the student, to the parent, if they're involved, and yeah, super important.
Interesting. So that kind of gives it a sort of like a real like goal oriented process rather than just going and jumping right in. Kind of thinking about the bigger picture,
exactly.
What you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, exactly. I guess I try to also like take my time in their learning process, and I want them to take their time too, because I think oftentimes someone that's starting on music doesn't realize how much work is potentially involved.
Yeah, for sure.
So they're like, oh, I want to learn this song, but it's not going to be fast.
Yeah.
Like we have to take this step by step.
Totally.
Let's start with like right hand, left hand. Okay, let's put both together. And let's work on rhythm now. Oh, okay, how do you play that? So I want them to take their time and kind of realize that, if you do this slowly, then it's going to work better than if you try to like rush things and like not really a good job in the end.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Nice. So tell me about if there was any sort of momentous experiences that shaped you as a pianist into high school, and then taking that to the next level and going to McGill, or maybe you went to CEGEP before that.
Yeah,
tell me about that process, and then what your experience was like at McGill, how it influenced you, etc.
I would say that I went to Vanier, CEGEP in music, jazz as well. I did the 2-year program there.
Okay.
And I would say that was the best experience I had in terms of schooling.
Wow.
Especially because I was coming from like the environment where I was essentially practicing at home, thinking that I'm the only musician in the world type of thing, and that there's nothing out there, and that it gets hard after after a certain amount of years. You're thinking, okay, like what's happening with this? And then boom, I come to Vanier. Wow, there's all these musicians, and like they're doing the same thing that I'm doing. And now it was so tightly knit at Vanier, which was amazing. I got to know so many musicians and still keep in touch. The teachers were really cool. McGill was a whole different ballgame. So Vanier was very tightly knit, like I said, small group. Everyone kind of, you're in a team. You feel like you're like all together. Like, okay, we're doing this. Okay, nice. What are you learning? Oh, I'm learning that. Cool, I'm practicing. It's like everyone's kind of communicating that way. McGill was kind of every man for himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very competitive. Amazing players, though. In my year and the years that were older than me, so people that graduated before. And then like incoming students too. So it was motivational in that sense. Like everyone was just good. So you were like, wow, okay, I gotta be good. I got to play with a lot of them for sure. Got to meet like people like Greg and Hugo that I play with now.
So you preferred your experience at Vanier. Was that mostly because of just the vibe within the school?
I think so.
But in terms of like your overall progress, like how would you compare the two?
In terms of progress, I learned a lot at both of these institutions. It's hard to say. Like McGill gave me a lot of insight into composition and arranging, which I didn't do at all at Vanier. But then Vanier kind of, like I said, opened my eyes to like the music world, and like I finally felt like I was surrounded by musicians, which was really cool. At McGill, like I said, it was more every man for himself type of thing. People just like, you go into your room, you practice, get out, go to class, come back, practice, go home, come back.
Shed.
It was pretty much that, So it was less, I guess, friendly in that sense, but the classes were amazing, and the teachers too. So
cool. And so tell me about your experience traveling. Like you play with the Freddie James Project, and you've played all around the world. Tell me about that experience.
I guess it goes a little further than that, because basically my philosophy is to accept anything that comes my way, and then figure it out, like if I'm actually gonna do this or not. So I end up saying yes to a lot of things. I've like played all kinds of different music, like Bulgarian like choir music and like Greek music and top 40 and jazz and R&B and classical and you name it, which is nice because you get to experience different styles and really develop as a musician, like be kind of versatile. And the Freddie James Project was yet another opportunity to do that. So I joined that band, and it was different from what I was doing before that. I was 19 when I joined, and I had basically like I was fully like into jazz, like that's all that was interesting to me at the time. And then I got this opportunity, and now I'm thinking like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have to play like dance music and like pop and R&B. Do I really want to do this? And I said yeah, because like I said, I take anything that comes my way, and it was challenging for sure. In a sense, like going back to triads and stuff. But I mean, no, I'm kidding. It's not only triads.
Challenging to play triads, or just like to
think differently.
To think differently,
to think differently, and to learn all this different music that has like specific grooves, and the feel and the sounds, which I wasn't used to. My thing was like, hey, there's a piano, great, I'm playing piano, that's it. Here I was playing like synth lines and string lines and horns and like all kinds of different stuff. So it was for sure a challenge, but it helped me, like you said, I traveled the world, got to experience like different countries and different cultures, which was really awesome. Got to get a bunch of gear too. Which I realized over the years that I'm like addicted to like vintage gear. So I have a bunch of stuff at home. It's like not even gonna say all of it. Anyway, the list is huge. But it really helped me discover sonically what you can do as a keyboard player, as opposed to being only a pianist, which was nice.
Okay. All right. So tell me about your band Algorithm. This is your current project that you've had for just over a year now.
Yeah. So this project started with me graduating McGill, and I always wanted to write. I had a lot of ideas for different, like I guess kind of blending all the styles that interested me at a certain point or still interest me, and it all kind of came out in a splurge of compositions that I wrote over the summer of last year.
Okay.
And I thought of I had some musicians in mind already that I wanted to play with, and I thought would fit well for this kind of project. Plus, when I contacted those musicians, they recommended other people, so we kind of put a band together like that. And the idea was to quickly record an EP, and then get out there and play and try to just kind of do that thing, the live, get into the live scene. And it's been quite successful up until now. I'd say it's going well. We recorded the EP. We recorded another single, which should be coming out soon. A music video. So there's stuff in the development.
Okay. And what style would you say it is?
It's like it's hard to say. Like I said, it's a mix of so many styles, but primarily it's like progressive rock, with a lot of jazz stuff in there too. Like harmonically and even just like groove wise. Okay. So it's kind of the blend of those two, prog rock and jazz, kind of that mix.
Okay. And you sing as well, right? In this? And there's like definitely a blues kind of vibe in there.
Yeah, for sure. Like a lot of the melodies are very like pentatonic and that kind of thing, and but then like harmonically it's like pretty complex, and then you have like odd meters and a whole mix of things. So
nice. And what's your I guess this is an avenue for you to like play your compositions and work with musicians that you're interested in working with. But what's your what do you hope to do with this project?
I mean, I hope to become a superstar, of course. Well, I don't know, maybe. But really, I'd like to get on the festival scene for sure. And that's something that really interests me. And I don't know if I'm necessarily targeting like crazy like insane stardom type of thing, but definitely I want to get out there more and, basically just reach out to a lot of people with my music and, and see what the reaction is. At this point, like I said, I'm pretty happy with what's going on. The songs sound great, and we're getting like tighter and tighter as a band. So it's going well.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what's the highlight so far after a year of playing and performing?
The highlight, it's probably tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow we're playing the Hudson Music Festival. So that's going to be pretty exciting. It's a competition, in fact. So it's like a youth competition. And I think it's going to be our biggest gig yet up until now. So, pretty excited about that.
All right, so I have one last question.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about your teaching. Like, what inspires you to give back in terms of teaching? And obviously that's an important part of being a professional musician is teaching. So what do you enjoy, and what's your what inspires you about teaching piano?
I think the most inspiring thing is to kind of see your students progress. Also to see them be inspired by their own progress, if I can say that. So, when they accomplish something, like they learn a song and, it sounds like the original or whatever it is. Well, they're kind of inspiring themselves, and now, okay, I want to keep going. So that's really one thing that motivates me to teach a lot. Also, I try to push my students to kind of have these goals like I did when I was studying. So I'll have like recordings that I'll do for them. So I'll record. I'll tell them, okay, we're gonna do like a recording in, I don't know, a month. Let's prepare 2-3 songs. And then, they're kind of like, oh, okay, this is important. I have to like practice or whatever, and at the end they have some kind of result. So I think what inspires me is to see my students, to see their success. Basically, that's the main thing, and the parents for sure. When they're happy, everyone's happy. Yeah. Yeah,
cool. And what stood out to me about your profile on the website, Musiprof, is that you usually do compositions with all your students. Yeah. Do you do that with kids, adults alike?
I do, yeah.
Okay, tell me, where does that come from?
I don't know. I think that comes from me. Okay. It's just something that I found, students are always, scared of. Not really scared of, I would say more, surprised that they're going to be doing that, right now. I've been playing for, let's say, I don't know, a month, 2 months, and we're writing something. How are we doing this, But in the end, they kind of see, I wrote this little piece, and it's mine. I kind of, came up with this idea, or, we'll work on it together for sure. But in the end, it's also a sense of accomplishment for them. And I treat music like a language. So, I think of it as you gotta speak, you gotta write, you gotta read. So, you need to cover all 3 aspects. And when you're learning a language, you don't necessarily just focus on, okay, I'm just gonna read. Yeah. But I don't know how to say a word, but I'm just gonna be able to read. So you try to do all of them at the same time, So that's what I do in terms of music as well.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So I imagine though with a beginner, how do you teach them to compose? Isn't this a whole big thing, and there's a lot to composition?
Well, right? I don't make it a huge thing either, So it's not okay, there's some rules and whatever. No, it's more you're free to do what you want, kind of, and I'll guide you. Okay. Sometimes oftentimes I'll start with them, instead of really writing something, they'll play a variation on something they learned. So let's say we learned some kind of song, and I'll tell them, well, say you had to change one note in this, what would you change and why and where? And then they'll say, well, what if we add this or something, And then, okay, let's try that. What does that sound like? So that kind of thing, that's already composing, because you're changing the melody, or you're changing a chord or an accompaniment, So just small little variations like that, and then eventually we get to writing a little piece, or 2 bars, 4 bars.
Okay. Yeah. Do you prefer teaching jazz or classical?
Both. Yeah. I mean, if a student comes fresh, no music knowledge before, we're definitely starting with classical for sure.
Okay.
So I'm gonna teach them the basics. Learn some songs that are kind of classical, like oriented, I guess. And I always try to basically force them to do a song, like learn a song that I'll tell them, okay, you need to learn this because that's gonna work this aspect of your playing. And also I'll tell them, what do you want to learn? So they bring something in and I'll bring something in.
Cool.
And that way they're not just feeling like, oh, I'm doing these songs and it's like, poor me,
Yeah.
They're also learning something that they like.
Yeah.
So both.
Cool. I like that. That's a nice balance of like finding their interest, but also at the same time guiding them to learn the basics. Learn what they need to learn to progress. Yeah. Cool. All right. So to wrap it up, what keeps you inspired to continue this process of being a pianist? Or
what keeps me inspired? That's a good question. That's a really good question. I think after a certain point, it became so much part of my life that I can't imagine it not being there. So I'm kind of fully involved in it. Like I'll be reading articles. Like I said, I'm a gear addict, so I research gear. I'll be like reading reviews and stuff, and I'll be practicing. I'll be writing. I'll be listening. I'll be going to concerts. Like trying to get involved completely in that world, And I think that's what kind of keeps me going, because I'm not stuck only like in my room practicing. I'm not only writing, I'm also reading, I'm also like, I also do like repairs on like amps and stuff like that. So I'm like fully involved in this whole process, which really keeps me going and keeps it interesting too.
Right on. Cool, man. Well, thanks so much. This was super interesting.
Thank you.
I find it really cool to hear about like you had that fire since the age of 6 years old and like it's just going strong.
I don't know.
Super cool.